In the famous words spoken by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. It refers to the fact that when we are in stressful situations, the biggest threat may not be the actual experience, but the fear surrounding it that can have us in its grip, exerting its control and influences in our lives. Sharing with us a personal story from her own in her speech tonight entitled Flight of Fantasy. Please welcome Pobst.
You are all familiar with stories about people who face their greatest fears and rise above them with great acts of courage and tenacity. This is not one of those stories. Instead, this is a story how fear can bring us face to face with our limitations and show us our real human vulnerabilities. As I share my story this evening, see if you can relate to having similar feelings in a situation of your own. My story begins when my husband, Gordon, and I were first married. He had his pilot's license and an airplane, a Cessna 172. I thought it would be a good idea if I learned how to fly. That way we would both be pilots. It took about a year of flying lessons, intense study, learning navigation and aeronautics, many hours long flying by myself, and I was really proud when I got my license. Shortly after that, I received an invitation from my former college roommate to her wedding in Newport, Oregon. With my newly minted pilot wings, I said, "Gordon, let's fly down." We decided that I would fly the leg down and he would fly the leg home. The trip down was glorious. Me, the proud new pilot, Gordon, my trusty navigator, everything went smoothly until we got close to the Oregon coast. Marine air was pushing clouds and weather on shore, and as the clouds got closer and closer to the ground, I had to fly lower and lower to get under them. Just when I thought I would have to turn back, we located the airport. When I saw that runway straight ahead, I knew there'd be no fancy landing pattern for me. I took the mic and I said, "This is 739 X-ray mic on final approach for runway 29er. And I went straight in, and I landed safely. The next couple days were occupied with wedding festivities, but always in the back of my mind lingered an uneasy, anxious feeling as I kept looking at the clouds hanging over the coast. The day dawned to fly home, and much to my dismay, it was drizzly, gray and overcast. We got to the airport, and we readied the airplane. We untied the tie-downs from the wings, we called for a weather report, and we talked to the airport people. You see, Gordon and I were VFR rated pilots, which stands for Visual Flight Rules. That means we had to be able to see to fly. We waited several hours in the airport office, pacing back and forth, drinking endless cups of coffee, hoping that the weather would clear. And suddenly, out of the blue, the sky opened up right over the airport, and we received clearance to fly VFR. Gordon's plan was to go up through the opening in the clouds, and since the clouds were low enough, we could fly above them, and by the time we got to Wenatchee, we'd be out of the clouds. It seemed like a good plan at the time. We took off, and Gordon went up through that opening, and pretty soon we were flying above a sea of clouds. That opening quickly disappeared behind us, and pretty soon all I could see in any direction was white. I want to listen to know a weather report, so I tuned into the radio. When the voice came on, I heard him say, "Wenatchee, cloudy." Alarmed, I said, "Gordon, he said it's cloudy in Wenatchee. What are we going to do?" Instantly, I thought the very worst. How are we going to get down without running into a mountain or slamming into the ground? Whatever airports could we go to? Ellsworth? Yeah, come on, Spokane. What if they were sucked in too? How far could we go without running out of pure. Suddenly, Gordon's voice penetrated through my cloud of fear. I heard him say, Wenatchee, clear. No, he said cloudy. The trip to Wenatchee was going to take several hours, so I decided to just try to calm myself and wait for the weather to clear. I waited. 10 minutes. I'm going to listen again. Wenatchee, cloudy. Gordon, it's still cloudy in Wenatchee. How are we going to get down? Leigh, he said, Wenatchee, clear. No, he didn't. I am sure of it. By now, I am in a panic. I reach again, and Gordon put out his hand. No, you cannot turn on the radio. Being petrified and drinking multiple cups of coffee is not a good combination in a small airplane. The rest of my trip. Anxiously looking at the horizon, trying to see land in that endless white. Finally, after an eternity, arrived in Wenatchee, and it was crystal clear. I have never been so happy to get my feet on the ground, and I'm sure Gordon felt the same way, but possibly for a different reason than my own. Whenever I reflect back on that trip, I'm always amazed at how clearly I heard the words that I did and how confident I was that they were true. That experience gave me a graphic example of how fearful emotions can distort and shape our reality and direct our behavior in ways we are not even aware of. The moral of this story is that we don't see things necessarily how they really are. We see things from how we are. The one piece I'd like you to take away from my speech this evening is to ask yourself this question. Where do you let fear distort and shape your reality? When do you take your own flight of fantasy? And how might that prevent you from seeing the forest for the trees? Or, as in my case, from seeing the land for the